My name is Julian David Stone. I am the author of It's Alive, which is a novel that tells the story of the days leading up to the beginning of production on the 1931 classic Frankenstein. What people don't know is that at the time that Frankenstein was made, which really launched horror as a genre, Universal Studios was being run by a 21-year-old named Carl Laemmle Jr., or Junior Laemmle as he was known throughout his life. He was the son of the founder of Universal Studios, and he was 21 years old when he was put in charge of the studio, and Junior had very different ideas of what he wanted Universal Studios to make. And among those were the classic horror films. And he started out with Dracula, and everybody thought it would be a flop. It turned out to be a big hit, so he decided to double down, and he next made Frankenstein. And same reaction, people thought he was crazy to make this film, but he decided to proceed with it, and then before production began, he had to decide who was going to star in this movie. He had made a star out of Bela Lugosi, so that seemed like the logical extension to make him a star in Frankenstein, and that was the original intent. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, and leading up to the beginning of production, it went back and forth between whether it would be Bela Lugosi or Boris Karloff starring in Frankenstein. Ultimately, Boris Karloff got the role, and the rest is history. And if you want to find out how all of it came to be, I recommend you check out my novel, It's Alive.
And tell us about the Justice Girl novel.
Justice Girl is a novel I wrote before It's Alive, and it tells the story of the early days of television. What people don't realize is that television exploded in 1946 at the end of World War II. But for the first 10 or 15 years that television existed, there was no videotape, meaning everything you were watching on your screen was happening at that very moment somewhere, most likely in New York on a soundstage, and it led to some incredible craziness that happened because you had a live broadcast. But what was also amazing about this era was that despite the fact that it was all live, the makers of television then were not refused to give in to what could have been the limitations, and they staged incredibly complicated live productions, many of which went on to be movies, but first started as live TV productions. The famous film Marty was originally a live TV production, 12 Angry Men, and all sorts of big, complicated dramas and comedies. And Justice Girl is about a writer during this period of time who accidentally creates this character named Justice Girl, and it turns out to be a sensation, and it's all the back and forth that he goes through, his fights with the network, with censorship, with wanting to deal with different types of material and subject matter than the networks wanted to have on the air. A lot of the battles that people still fight today, but they really had to fight it then because there were no other outlets. You couldn't just do your own internet show. You had to deal with television or bust. So that's what Justice Girl is about.
For both books, what will surprise people about it, and what do you want people to get out of it?
I think people will be surprised by how entertaining they are. I try to write everything to make it fun and entertaining and make you want to read the next page. That's a compliment I've always gotten about my work, that people couldn't put it down, and that's something that I take pride in, because I think when you do it right, and I hope I'm doing it right, you can't wait to keep reading the story. I think people will be surprised to learn in It's Alive how the film business, even though it's 100 and 125 years later, everything that we sort of think about it, the cliches and everything, all started right in the beginning. And with Justice Girl, I don't think people are aware of how crazy it was in these early days of television, when they were essentially creating this art form of live television that only lasted for about 10 or 15 years, and just how amazing it was that they pulled off these incredible productions. And I think people would find that fascinating, that they weren't daunted by, the fact that it was live. They would have walls flying out and, off camera, and actors running in, just absolute chaos. And that's how every show was done back then.
And why do you like going to cons? Why are cons beneficial for selling your books?
Well, cons are great because you get to meet lots of people, new people, and introduce them to their work. My personal favorite thing is the number of people I've met who have read my work, and it's the first time that I've met them, and it's been really exciting having people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, I read your book, I loved it," or "I've heard about this before, I've always wanted to get it." That's been the most satisfying, is getting a chance to meet people. And I also very much enjoy turning new people onto my work.
And if people can't go to the con, how can they find your website?
Sure. I can be found at juliandavidstone.com. That's where you can read about all my different works. Justice Girl, It's Alive, plus I have a book of rock and roll photos that I took in the 1980s called No Cameras Allowed. It's all there on juliandavidstone.com.